This is where I introduce you to amazing people who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. And I really think you should know about our guest. And I chatted to him right before the broadcast. I've been vegan for 43 years. I know all of the Adventist doctors. Why don't I know about you and your work? Well, you're going to be blown away when you hear about what he does. And he's actually going to be giving a presentation on nutrition and the brain. But first, let's get to know him a little bit. His name is Dr. Neil Nedley, and he is from Weimar Institute. Welcome, Dr. Nedley. It's so nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you. Great to be here, Chef AJ.
Yeah. So what is Weimar and why don't I know about this place? It sounds amazing.
Well, Weimar Institute is the home of New Start, which is an acronym that stands for nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, fresh air, rest, and trust. And those 8 remedies have been shown in the scientific literature to actually intervene in healing diseases as well as prevent us from getting diseases in the first place. And so we have a residential lifestyle center here where people come from all over the world for coronary artery disease, cancer, other chronic diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes especially. And then we also have a program for depression and anxiety recovery where we deal with all forms of depression, including bipolar depression, and all forms of anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and generalized anxiety, as well as obsessive compulsive disorder, and all of the depression and anxiety disorders. And it turns out nutrition has a vital role to say, and actually in intervening in healing the mental diseases as well.
That's so fascinating. And that's not something that's really talked about because in the plant-based world, we have so many wonderful healers and it's always, diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune disease. Nobody really addresses mental health in the plant community.
Yes, exactly. And as you'll find out today, this is one of the missing elements of traditional medicine. We have enough information now that nutrition should be considered as a mainstream element of any psychiatric practice, as you'll see.
That is incredible. Thank you for doing that. Where is Weimar located and how long has it been there?
Yeah, so Weimar has been here actually it started out in 1917 as a tuberculosis sanatorium for this county, just east of Sacramento. It's north and east, and it's actually on the foothills of the Sierras. Very beautiful location here in Northern California. For the last 40 years, we've had a college, and we also have an accredited college for healing in regards to psychology. We have psychology programs that lead to licensed counselors, but we also have a nursing program, pre-med, pre-dent, physical therapy, the healing arts here. And of course, the research laboratory is the medical facilities that we have here in treating depression, anxiety, and all of the chronic diseases that are prevalent in our society today. And our students actually publish in the scientific literature. Most of our students, by the time they graduate, have actually published in the scientific literature in regards to another new element that is helpful for the rest of the world to know about in regards to healing.
Well, if I had heard about you, I might have gone there a long time ago to get some kind of degree because I feel like if I had a degree, people would listen to me more,
Well, you can interview the people with the degrees and they'll listen to you even more. Sometimes people without degrees are better communicators than the ones with them.
Well, that really is the purpose of the show, Dr. Nedley, to let people find out about incredible gems like you that maybe not everybody knows about, and hopefully everybody will now. Watching live is Dr. Gerald Woodruff, who says if the schools are allowed to open, he has a friend that's going to be going to Weimar. So that's amazing.
Great. Well, our school actually is open because all of our students are part of the essential workers because they work in these facilities, meaning that they can't go home because they're part of the essential workforce. And so Weimar will be having face-to-face students here and not just online this fall.
So for people watching, let's say they have a disease they're trying to reverse, whether it's a heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune, or like you said, something that's more in the mental health area, they don't just show up. Is there a protocol? Do they go to the website, fill out forms, have a consult? How does it work to get to become a patient?
Yeah, to become a patient, they would actually need to call and enroll. There's a nurse case manager that goes through an interview process and makes sure that they're qualified to come to the program. You can also do a lot of that work on newstart.com or even newstart.org. And so that could help you with a lot of the information. But eventually you'll need to call one of our interviewers, Ron Giannone, or in the case of depression and anxiety recovery, it would be Sarah or Sally that you would talk to get into those programs.
Is there a certain length of stay, or does it depend on the patient and what they're trying to accomplish?
There are certain programs that do have a structured length of stay and a structured educational and therapeutic process. The depression and anxiety recovery program runs for 10 days. The diabetes recovery program, that's going to run for 17 days. And so it depends upon the disease process. Now, there are those that can stay longer. Some people with depression and anxiety recovery program, we just ended the 10-day program. And we have 2 of them that need a little longer treatment. And so they're staying here and they can stay, as long as they need to until they're well enough for re-entry and we know that they're going to do well in their home setting.
That's incredible. So they sleep over. So I imagine you're feeding them there. What are you feeding them?
Well, we're feeding them a plant-based diet. And it turns out plant-based actually helps for mental health as well as diabetes. And so, yes, they are staying in our beautiful facilities and they are eating our wonderful plant-based recipes that are somewhat specific for the disease process that they have.
That's amazing, because people watching actually have the New Start cookbook and they're saying what a wonderful cookbook it is.
Yes, there's a New Start cookbook, and then we also have a cookbook for the mental health part of things. It turns out breakfast is the best meal of the day if you're having emotional issues, and so we have a cookbook, Brighten Up Breakfast, and also a book called Depression: The Way Out, which is filled with recipes in the back that are all plant-based that'll help us be able to make the nutrients that we might be lacking in regards to brain biochemistry.
This is absolutely amazing. If I wasn't 60, I'd want to work for you, honestly. But I just don't want to. It's not that I don't want to be a chef again, but you know what I'm trying to say. If we had met 20 years ago, I think I'd have been your chef.
All right. Well, this is great what we're doing even now, but you're invited here anytime.
If you ever need a guest chef for a presentation, I've been doing them remotely because I'm so fascinated and impressed by what you do. And I'm kicking myself. Why don't I know about you? Do any of you guys know about him? Because you're amazing that you care about this so much, because like you say, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, autoimmune disease, they get all the plant-based diet, but I don't know very many people that are talking about mental health. And that is such a big deal.
It is a big deal, and it's becoming a greater deal. If you turn on the news, basically you're seeing mental illness on display in so many different settings, even in the world of politics. And
I was going to say something, but I don't want to. But
and so there's a lot of mental health conditions that are actually making our world maybe more interesting, but also certainly a greater need for programs like this everywhere.
So you're an internal medicine physician. What got you interested in mental health specifically?
Well, actually, it was because up to 1 in 3 of my patients, Chef AJ, were having a mental health challenge. They were seeing me for heart disease or maybe cancer or gastrointestinal illness. But when we did a study, 1 to 3, up to 1 in 5 were actually having depression or anxiety. And I thought, if I'm seeing this so common, I need to become an expert in those diseases. And so I began to actually learn from some of the best psychiatrists in the world, but I also recognized things were treated differently in the psychiatric field than in internal medicine. In internal medicine, we look for the cause of the disease and treat the underlying cause. And with depression and anxiety, as soon as that was diagnosed, often they went right into treatment without actually looking for the underlying causes. And so I began to actually research the underlying causes. And we were actually the first one to publish about over the 100 different causes of depression and anxiety. And if those causes can be reversed, the disease can be eradicated. And this isn't something you have to struggle with the rest of your life. It can actually be eradicated when we find the underlying causes. And so there's 10 categories of causes, one of which is nutrition, which is what we're going to be speaking about today. And if we reverse those nutritional causes, when we heal the brain biochemistry, the brain gets healed.
It's incredible because most people aren't looking to heal the brain biochemistry. They're looking to medicate it.
Exactly. And there's a difference, and we'll discuss that.
Well, I am just so excited to hear your presentation. Before we get into your slides, Jane is saying she is an LMFT. Do you hire therapists?
We do hire therapists, yes. In fact, we're also in need of therapists to actually teach in our graduate program as well that are more wellness-based. Our degree is actually in counseling, psychology, and wellness. And we also have therapists that we utilize in every one of our programs, and multiple therapists, actually. Of course, you need to have a license in the state of California, or you need to be licensable, because we can actually provide supervision too for you to accumulate your hours and get licensed as a result of working here.
Terrific. Are you ready to start your presentation, Nutrition in the Brain?
Sure. Let's go for it.
Thank you.
All right. Nutrition in the brain. The first slide I'm going to show you is actually a slide of the synapse. This is where every pharmaceutical company in the world is trying to manipulate. And if you see on the screen here, this is what we're looking at. It's serotonin. This is the primary molecule that is actually treated by most antidepressants. And the serotonin is being released. It's picked up by one of those receptors, and that's how communication occurs. But when there's a shortage of serotonin, the actual drugs are working on the sides, on those reuptake channels. The drugs like Prozac and Zoloft and Celexa and Lexapro, escitalopram, these type of drugs, even Cymbalta and Effexor, they actually come to those vacuum cleaners and they plug the vacuum cleaners. Now, that allows more serotonin to be in the synapse, but it doesn't take care of the underlying problem, because the underlying problem was a shortage of serotonin. These drugs don't help us make serotonin. They don't help us pick up more receptors. They're actually just blocking the vacuum cleaners. And so as a result, there might be more synaptic activity for a few months, but eventually when those vacuum cleaners are plugged, serotonin's no longer going back into that receiving neuron, and you end up with an even more severe shortage of serotonin. And this is why these drugs have been shown to actually cause the disease they're designed to treat after about a year of treatment. And so now you need more drugs, you need more combination of drugs, and you're likely to become a psychiatric cripple unless we take care of the underlying biochemical issue in the brain. And of course, in regards to serotonin, by the way, there's other vacuum cleaner pluggers as well. There's norepinephrine vacuum cleaner pluggers. There's dopamine vacuum cleaner pluggers. But none of these commonly used drugs actually help us to make the deficient neurotransmitter or help us to pick up the receptor. And so let's take a look at tryptophan itself. Insufficient dietary tryptophan is the most common amino acid deficiency. And tryptophan is converted to serotonin, melatonin at night, so it helps us with sleep, and also niacin. Since it's the least abundant amino acid in the diet, this is why we have such serotonin challenges in the brain. And the conversion of tryptophan to 5-HTP in the brain is inhibited by stress, insulin resistance, another name for that is diabetes or prediabetes, magnesium deficiency or a B6 deficiency if we're not getting enough light, or the older we get, the less we make. But even an old person can make enough as long as they have the tryptophan in the brain and they don't have insulin resistance and these other types of issues, other deficiencies that are inhibiting them, or lack of light. A lot of older people are getting more lack of light because they're hunkered indoors with COVID. And this actually prevents their brain from converting tryptophan over into serotonin. And so let's take a look at the effects. Tryptophan has been shown to improve premenstrual dysphoria from ovulation to the 3rd day of menstruation. So if you're having problems with mood before ovulation, tryptophan can be a solution. Depression is not only improved, but seasonal affective disorder, where you get more depressed in the wintertime, is improved. insomnia is improved, and even diseases like obstructive sleep apnea. It's not only weight loss that helps, but it's altering the brain chemistry in regards to getting enough serotonin that can help. And then even drug withdrawal. We have many of our patients come to Weimar that are addicted to nicotine or to other drugs, alcohol, and a whole host of other drugs. Marijuana even is addictive. And so the tryptophan that they're getting here, which is designed to get into the brain, will actually help them with the withdrawal symptoms, and they'll do far better getting off of these addictive drugs. So if we take a look at the foods that are most concentrated in tryptophan here, when I was in medical school, I was told that whole milk was a great source of tryptophan, but there are other sources that are even more concentrated, like black-eyed peas, walnuts, almonds, sesame seeds. If you're not allergic or sensitive to gluten, which 96% of the public are not, gluten or wheat meat is actually very healthy. It helps us make glutamine and it helps us make serotonin in the brain. But there's even higher sources than gluten, and pumpkin seeds is one of those sources. And also, you can't see it on the bottom of the screen here, tofu. That number would be 747 milligrams. This is one of the Asian advantages, is it is rich in tryptophan. But it's not only tryptophan we need in the diet, we need to get it in the brain. And it turns out if we get tryptophan from chicken or turkey, it can end up in our muscle, but not in our brain, because we need carbs to get it into the brain. There's something called a blood-brain barrier. It makes it a steel pipe. And this is why your serotonin in your bloodstream has nothing to do with your serotonin in your brain, because serotonin can't cross into the brain. Neither can dopamine. So we don't actually give people IV dopamine to get over their depression because it won't get into the brain. We actually have to give them the nutrients that will be carried over into the brain, and then the brain makes this itself. But it turns out there's carriers that carry these amino acids across. And this is called a large neutral amino acid. There's 5 competitors to it. And we not only need to have carbs. For instance, if we take a look at milk and salmon, they have the same ratio of those tryptophan to the competitors. But it turns out only milk will actually get the tryptophan into the brain, because milk has carbs, salmon does not. Salmon might help us with the omega-3, but it's not going to help us with the tryptophan part of things. If we take a look at beef, chicken, and brown rice, those are a little better ratios, but it's only brown rice that is going to be able to help us considerably in getting more tryptophan into the brain. But there are better sources like black-eyed peas, soybeans. We talked about walnuts, black walnuts in particular. Pumpkin seeds are near the top, as is tofu, but almonds are actually the best, second best ratio. And I'm sorry, we can't see the bottom of the screen with our Zoom here today, but there's one food even better than almonds, and that is sesame seeds. If we were to look at that percentage, it would be 81% tryptophan, only 19% of the competition. And this is the advantage of hummus or sesame seed butter or tahini, as far as getting that tryptophan into the brain, where serotonin can then be made. Studies have shown in stress-prone subjects, high-carb, lower protein food is the best, because it prevents a deterioration of mood and performance under uncontrollable laboratory stress conditions. Stress-prone subjects have a higher risk of brain serotonin deficiency, and in such subjects, higher natural carbs, this is a direct quote from the study, increase personal control. Carbohydrates prevent a functional shortage of central serotonin during acute stress due to their potentiating effect on brain tryptophan. That means we get the brain tryptophan levels up, and it helps us to be able to counteract stress, but we need carbs. When we eat a high protein diet, low carb diet, we're actually not getting that tryptophan into the brain, because it's an insulin mediated mechanism. That means we have to have the carbs on board to get it across into the brain. Now, I'm not talking, excuse me, I'm not talking about low protein where it's deficient protein. I'm talking about getting adequate protein. But in America, most people are getting 4 to 10 times the amount of protein they need, and it's actually making their brain deficient in the ability to make serotonin. Tyrosine is another important amino acid, and tyrosine is incorporated into proteins of all life forms and is a precursor for the synthesis of thyroid hormone. In fact, if you're short in thyroid, you might try some L-tyrosine foods or L-tyrosine supplements. It can help you make more of it. Melanin and enkephalins, and two neurotransmitters, dopamine and norepinephrine. Tyrosine is a potent antioxidant, stimulates growth hormone production, and it is of therapeutic benefit in improving not only depression, but it can improve high blood pressure. These norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor blockers like Effexor, they're going to raise blood pressure. Pristique's going to raise blood pressure. But when we get you the tyrosine you need, it improves depression and improves high blood pressure, and that's a win-win. It improves our ability to handle stress. It improves our cognitive function, even our memory, and it can improve such diseases as Parkinson's and even narcolepsy, where we have a tendency to fall asleep during a presentation we want to stay awake for. Tyrosine supplementation has been shown to reduce headache, stress, fatigue, muscle aches, and sleepiness compared to controls. And improvements were noted in mood, mental states. So your happiness level is better, your mental clarity is better, you're less hostile, you're less tense. And then cognitive tests can improve, like math tests and coding map compass and pattern recognition in the tyrosine group. And maybe best of all is feelings of vigor improve. And so your energy level goes up and you're able to be more engaged in the day. A little different set of foods that are high in tyrosine, mustard greens and lamb's quarters. Lamb's quarters is not the hind leg of a small sheep. It's actually a green. The greens are pretty high in it. Tomatoes, tofu, edamame is even higher with tyrosine. This is the green soybeans. And then we see near the top of the list, almonds, oats, sunflower seeds, peanuts, and pumpkin and squash seeds are by far the highest. And the nice thing about pumpkin seeds is it was also high in tryptophan, if you can remember. Now, tyrosine has some competition as well, 3 competitors. And you can see even flaxseed has tyrosine in it. Chia seeds are going to have more of the better ratio. We probably shouldn't have beef on this scale because it's the same thing with tyrosine. We need carbs. Beef is a carbohydrate deficient food. So we have tofu that's going to be a far better source. Pumpkin seeds are actually not the best as far as the ratio. We have soybeans, spirulina, watermelon, and mustard greens are at the top of the list. Now, how does this have a role to play? If you are caffeine free and you need to stay awake at night because tyrosine is going to improve this cousin of adrenaline called norepinephrine, if you drink or eat watermelon in the evening and you need to stay up all night driving somewhere that for an emergency that you didn't know about until that day, that watermelon will keep you awake as much or more than caffeine, but it won't give you the wired actually feeling or the anxiety feeling. It'll actually just help you to feel normal. So for our anxiety patients that can't have caffeine because caffeine fuels anxiety, we will actually tell them during emergencies if they need to stay up, watermelon will actually do the trick and keep them awake, or mustard greens if they would prefer that in its place. The ironic conclusion, don't chow down on high protein sources to boost either tyrosine or tryptophan, even though those are protein building blocks. We emphasize carbohydrate-rich plant sources of nutrition to get the tyrosine and tryptophan into the brain where we can make those neurotransmitters. Now, low folate levels also can be a cause of depression. In fact, Chef AJ, since folate cannot be patented, some of the drug companies recognize how helpful folate is, and so they just added a methyl group to it so it could be a new molecule and then patented it. And it's actually sold as a very expensive antidepressant drug, but a lot of the people who are taking that drug have not been told if they would just increase their folate level, they'd be able to save themselves $250 a month, at least in most cases. So folate is undersupplied in the typical American diet. We need 400 micrograms to have our red blood cells made right, where we don't have macrocytic anemia, or we don't have neural tube defects if we're pregnant and forming a fetus. But we need 1,000 micrograms for optimal brain health, because folate really helps us in making 3 different neurotransmitters. And you can see getting your folate from steak, if you're wanting 1,000 micrograms, that's a double serving of steak. You'd have to eat so much steak that you might die that day trying to get your folate. But there are better sources like parsnips, pineapple juice, orange juice, peanuts, mustard greens show up on the list again. Spinach is even higher yet. Navy beans higher yet. Okra is an excellent source of folate. And now notice lentils, 1 cup, 831 micrograms of folate. And there's one food, just 1 cup will give you enough for the entire day. And it's actually black-eyed peas that are grown here organically in the Sacramento Valley. And they're a nice sweet legume, and they will give you all the folate you need for the day as far as brain chemistry is concerned. Another nutritional cause of depression is actually atherosclerosis, causing heart disease or mini strokes. Patients with major depression tend to have significantly higher cholesterol levels than healthy adults. That's why we measure everyone's cholesterol level. Depressed patients with elevated cholesterol have a poorer prognosis for treatment response, and lowering cholesterol levels improves depression and mood, and also improves impulsivity. And I should mention that the antidepressants can improve mood, but they actually worsen impulsivity. That's why they have black box warnings on them, because suicide is often an impulsive act. But if we can get the cholesterol down, we'll help both the depression and the impulsivity. So let's take a look at the foods that have cholesterol in them. Fruits, grains, nuts, vegetables, one big advantage, no cholesterol. And milk, even skim milk, has some cholesterol in it, 2% milk more, whole milk 33 milligrams. Egg white is the only exception to the animal product rule, no cholesterol. Mayonnaise, 8 milligrams, ice cream, 29 milligrams, butter, 31. But notice the egg yolk, 213 milligrams of cholesterol. And a lot of people are confused about this, Chef AJ. They think tuna is part of the plant kingdom and has no cholesterol, but fish is part of the animal kingdom. It has a liver, it does have cholesterol in it, 26 milligrams per 3-ounce serving. Clams, 57, crabs, 64. And the world is also confused about this. They think if you scrape the fat and the skin off your chicken, it's a no cholesterol chicken. Now it goes down to 73 milligrams per 3-ounce serving, but pork is 76, beef is 80, and if you don't scrape the fat and the skin off your chicken, it's 82 milligrams, as much cholesterol as the red meat. A lot of people think seafood is the way to go, but oyster, 84 milligrams, even higher than other typical foods as far as cholesterol. Sardines, 120 milligrams per 3-ounce serving. Shrimp, 165 milligrams. And then when we get into organ meats like kidney, liver, caviar, large amounts of cholesterol in these organ meats. And then if you see anyone feasting on beef brains, you have to wonder about their intentions, because one 3-ounce serving, 1,697 milligrams of cholesterol. One of the reasons why we emphasize cholesterol in the diet is because cholesterol in the diet tends to be oxidized. And a study done by Bruce Taylor in New York showed that oxidized cholesterol is harmful to the vessels. Non-oxidized cholesterol is not harmful. And that's a clear waxy substance. So a lot of the cholesterol our liver makes, particularly if we're on a high antioxidant diet, is not going to be as damaging. But what we eat is already oxidized, and that oxidized cholesterol can be the most harmful. And there was a study in rabbits and monkeys that was done in New York that actually demonstrated this. And then there was another study in humans that also gave credence to it, actually several studies. But one was in Bogalusa in Louisiana, where mothers, the way they eat this Cajun food, they have higher cholesterol in their human breast milk than what cows have in their breast milk. And so people were thinking these infants raised in Louisiana, they're going to have atherosclerotic fatty streaks, because some of them do. And interestingly, the atherosclerotic fatty streaks were only found in the mothers that were giving them cow's milk. But human breast milk, even though it might have had more cholesterol, no damage to the infant's vessels. And the reason for that is the way babies get it from the mother, it's directly from the nipple, it's not exposed to the air, and it's not oxidized. And so the best way for us to drink our cow's milk would be to go down to the barn and get it straight. But it turns out that there are foods that are quite high in oxidized cholesterol, the highest being custards. Custards are where you take milk, eggs, and sugar, and when you mix it up with sugar, you highly oxidize it. And the most commonly consumed custard is ice cream. Second most damaging, pancake mix. This is primarily powdered eggs and powdered flour, and it's coming together, and it's actually the powdering of the eggs.
Did you freeze Dr. Nedley?
What's that?
Dr. Nedley, I can't hear you anymore.
Okay.
Can you guys hear him?
I am not heard.
Let's see if I can. Can you guys hear Dr. Nedley? Because I'm not hearing him.
Testing anymore. 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, there you're back, Dr. Nedley. For a moment, you said custard, and then I didn't hear anything after custard.
Okay. Yeah, the most commonly consumed custard is ice cream, and this is when you mix it up in a sugar environment. Second most damaging, pancake mix. This is primarily powdered eggs and powdered flour. The powdered eggs heavily oxidize it. Third most damaging, Parmesan cheese. You're powdering up the cheese, oxidizing the cholesterol, and this was tied with lard as being the third most damaging cholesterol. This is why it's good to look for ice cream alternatives. You know, even freezing bananas and putting it through a Champion juicer will be cholesterol-free ice cream. And there's Tofrutti, and there's also even ice cream, such as one of our board members at Weimar makes, called We Can't Say It's Ice Cream. 32 flavors on an oatmeal base, which makes it very creamy and far less sweetener that we have to put in as well. And so it's also why Brighten Up Breakfast that we recommend as a cookbook for our depression and anxiety recovery program. It has 4 pancake mixes, none of them with any cholesterol or oxidized cholesterol, and just wonderful pancakes. And of course, there's alternative cheeses as well. And then finally, we might have some, you might have some questions, but this will be the last section that I cover here this morning, is the role of antioxidants in depression and anxiety. It was observed that patients with generalized anxiety disorder and depression had significantly lower blood levels of antioxidants in comparison to healthy controls. And that's one of the big advantages of plant-based diet. After dietary supplementation of these vitamins for a period of 6 weeks, significant reduction in anxiety and depression scores of patients was observed. And that's very statistically significant for those that understand statistics. And interestingly, however, it's much better to actually eat the food than to take the supplements. The power of whole plant foods exceeds that of their component parts. For instance, 1 cup of kale has 50 milligrams of vitamin C and 13 units of vitamin E, but the antioxidant potential of 1 cup of kale is equal to 800 milligrams of vitamin C and 1,100 units of vitamin E. So instead of taking it out of the bottles, actually eat the kale itself. Far better approach. The Human Nutrition Laboratory in Baltimore, Maryland, recently looked at the top 10 antioxidant vegetables consumed in America. Number 10 was eggplant. Number 9, corn. Number 8, onion, high antioxidant food. Red bell pepper, even higher. Beets. Beets are underrated. Beets are loaded with antioxidants, have been shown to help lower blood pressure. Even beet powder has been shown to do this. Broccoli is very rich in antioxidants. Brussels sprouts. If you don't like Brussels sprouts, come to Weimar. Even the Brussels sprout haters love the way Brussels sprouts are prepared at Weimar. Spinach is number 3. Kale is number 2. And the number 1 antioxidant vegetable is actually garlic. And this is one of the advantages of being married to a Romanian, as I am. Every entree starts out with 4 cloves of garlic, it seems. Very rich in antioxidants. And then the top antioxidant fruits. Grapefruit is number 10. Kiwi, number 9. Cherries are loaded as well, number 8. Red grapes with those bioflavonoids are number 7. Oranges, number 6. And a humble fruit actually tops all of these whole fruits, plums, number 5. And the top ones are actually all in the berry family. Raspberries, number 4. Strawberries, number 3. Blackberries, number 2, which actually grow wild out on our trails here at Weimar. We just picked a bunch of blackberries yesterday. My wife did. And number 1 is actually blueberries with those anthocyanins. And so as we emphasize the foods that are high in antioxidants, no oxidized cholesterol, making sure we're getting enough tryptophan and tyrosine in forms that will actually turn it into the brain, we can actually help the brain biochemistry significantly without the use of drugs and without the use of the side effects and the long-term effects that I mentioned. So I hope that's very helpful to your viewers and listeners, Chef AJ, and I'm certainly open for questions.
Absolutely. It's amazing because all the foods you mentioned are like foods that I eat.
All right.
So that's amazing. Are you familiar, Dr. Nedley, with a book that was written a long time ago called Potatoes, Not Prozac by Kathleen de Maison?
I have heard of the book. I don't remember reading it, but it'd be interesting since it was written a long time ago if she was onto some of this.
Because she was basically saying that when we eat things like potatoes and sweet potatoes, they have this favorable effect in our brain. And I know that like when I eat them, which is every day, it's like they really make me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Potatoes have actually been shown to have an ingredient that fills the GABA receptors. And GABA is what people are using Xanax and lorazepam and those things for, but those are highly addictive. They actually make us produce less GABA. And there are things that actually suppress the frontal lobe. But potatoes are not going to decrease our GABA production and can actually help fill those receptors and make us more calm and can help us manage the usual frustrations of life a lot easier.
It's just so frustrating because so many people are out there promoting carnivore diets, keto diets, which exclude all the foods you're telling us we need to eat for health in general and brain health in particular.
You know, there's been 21 studies. I didn't show this today, but Chef AJ, there's been 21 studies done in the scientific literature so far on diet and depression. And there's only one of those studies that was a randomized, prospective, placebo-controlled trial. And that study actually was a plant-based diet, and it showed improvement in depression in just 2 weeks by shifting over from a carnivore diet to a plant-based diet. So sometimes we're accused of cherry picking and saying, well, what about the paleo diet? What about the Mediterranean diet and all that? There's no cherry picking when there's only one cherry and there's only one study. This is the highest gold standard types of studies that can be done today are prospective, controlled, randomized trials. And there's only one diet ever that's been shown to have a significant improvement in depression across the board, no matter what your genetic background or blood type or anything, and that is a plant-based diet.
Fantastic. When did you first discover a plant-based diet for yourself?
Well, I became 100% plant-based in 1986 after I graduated from medical school. And at that time, I was actually rotating with a cardiologist who was actually giving lectures around the city of my residency in regards to advantages of a plant-based diet. And I thought he was wrong because I thought, well, the way to prove you're attending wrong is go to the scientific literature. And so the more I went to the scientific literature, the more I realized he was right. And I remember coming home with a somber look on my face to my wife and saying, you know what, we're not on the best diet. I was concerned about eventually developing heart disease and stroke because my grandparents had died at early ages from these diseases. And she says, what is the best diet? And I said, it's totally plant-based, no meat, milk, eggs, or cheese. I said, do you think we could go this route, maybe within a year and plan on doing this? She says, if it's the best diet, let's start now. I said, are you going to really be ready for this? She goes, well, I'll do some research. I'll do some things. But if it's the best diet, why delay? Let's get on it right away.
That's incredible that you had spousal support. Do you guys happen to have any children, and were they raised eating this way?
Yes, all 4 of our boys were raised eating this way, and they're all very successful in their level at this time. Our youngest just graduated from high school. He's going to our Weimar Institute for pre-med to become a doctor. And one of our boys is already a physician in his 3rd year of residency, and he went to Weimar as well. Totally plant-based.
Oh my God! Like you're just like you're making the. That's incredible. You just have like a little factory right there. You make the kid. You don't have enough to go anywhere.
So 2 of our other boys didn't choose the medicine route. One of them chose physical therapy, which is also very about health. And then the 3rd boy did business, and he's actually helping us with some of our online depression and anxiety recovery program to get this information out to the rest of the world that can't come to Weimar.
That's fantastic. The person that influenced you, is he still around? Is he somebody I could interview? Because I love to know who taught the teacher.
Well, the one who taught the teacher was my father, and he wasn't always healthy either. But when I was 12 years old, he was having health problems, and he's an engineer. He wasn't a physician, but he read a book called Sugar Blues, and he realized, he was addicted to chocolate-covered cherries, to Reese's peanut butter cups, to ice cream, to all of this stuff. And he recognized he needed to change his diet and get off of this sugar. And I saw a new father emerge within 4 months. Not only did he lose weight, he got healthy, his mind got a lot better, and he also was aware of the advantages of a vegetarian diet and started to move everyone in that direction as a result of his own personal study just as an engineer. And so I probably wouldn't be a doctor, actually, if it wasn't for him, because I wasn't really interested in medicine, but when I could see how diet and lifestyle had such a major impact on my own father, I realized there was something to this. And so it actually piqued my interest in being able to help people through nutritional ways, which were the non-traditional approaches.
That's incredible. Was there any pushback for any of your 4 sons being raised on a plant-based diet?
Oh, yeah, they would be ridiculed at times, and, they would be a subject of discussion and those sorts of things. They seemed to handle it pretty well. They had the emotional intelligence to laugh it off, and also for those who were really interested, to show them the evidence behind it. They're all actually vegetarian today by choice.
That's amazing. I don't know if this is appropriate. I definitely wouldn't ask this to a woman, but how old are you? You look so young, Lana says.
Well, I'm an old man. I've been going at this for quite some time. So I am 58.
Wow, you don't even look even 40. You could pass for your 30s. Amazing what a plant-based diet can do, huh?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, Dr. Nedley, I didn't hear you talk much about exercise, and I wanted to ask you, we know it has a place for health, but especially mental health. And of course, I'm not a doctor, so what I'm saying may sound like a generalization, but throughout my life, I've known a lot of people with anxiety and depression, and myself used to suffer with it. And it seems that everyone I know that has one of those 2 conditions, they don't exercise. They either do nothing or maybe they take a little walk. Isn't exercise also important for brain health?
Absolutely, it is. And where the exercise plays a role particularly is it helps to build up the receptors. So there's 2 issues there. One is we need to build up the manufacturing of the appropriate neurotransmitters. But secondly, we need to build up the receptors on the receiving neurons. And exercise helps build up the receptors, and it also helps us to be more efficient in our release of the neurotransmitters. So exercise is a major part. When people come here, they need to know that they are going to be leaving far fitter than when they came. And it's pretty amazing what can happen. It's only a 10-day program, but with the type of exercise that we're utilizing called IT, they can become fit in 10 days, even though the vast majority of them are not fit. They have a hard time even doing a half-mile, walk without getting short of breath because they're not used to that. Even our 19-year-old patients that come to our program, we'll take them on a 2 or 3 mile hike by day 2 or 3, and they're worn out because they're just used to being on screens all the time and not getting out there and doing things. But yes, exercise is a vital role, and we'll actually measure their fitness level in regards to cardiovascular recovery with a step test. And we will see a parallel rate on how their depression and anxiety improves in regards to how their fitness level improves.
Wow. I consider myself fairly healthy and I want to come to your institute. It sounds almost like camp.
Yeah, it is kind of, in fact, people will call this a mental health boot camp when they come. And so, but it's a fun boot camp, and it is one that is highly rewarding. And so, yeah, if you're ever up in Northern California, give us a visit, and we'll give you a platform as well where you can talk to us about your experience as a chef and food. And you'd have quite an audience. We'd have a lot of students and everyone watching.
I would, when we are allowed, I mean, maybe I'm allowed now, but when it sounds amazing. And you sound like you are so blessed to do something that you really love and make a difference. And it seems like every guest on the show that you love what you do and you're making such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, kind of amazing to actually get paid for the most fun and enjoyable thing that you can ever do. And, I do a lot of fun and enjoyable things apart from work. I'm also a pilot, and I enjoy hiking in the mountains and those sorts of things. And I enjoy great music, but I can tell you that the most enjoyable thing that I do is taking someone who's in the depths of depression and anxiety in 10 days, seeing a very transformed individual who no longer even qualifies as having the disease, and seeing the look on their face and the look on their family's face when they leave this place.
Oh my God, where have you been all my life? I'm finally getting a handle on it. So now I don't want to, it sounds fabulous. You mentioned seeds, how important they were. There are some people that avoid added fats like nut seeds and avocado, maybe because their goal is weight loss, or maybe they have heart disease and they're following a Dr. Esselstyn type program. Are these really that essential, or could they supplement with eating maybe more greens or taking like an algae-derived omega-3 fatty acid?
Well, actually, there's good fats and there's bad fats. And most of the fats that Americans are eating are the bad fats. Those are the more saturated fats. They increase our liver's production of cholesterol. And even most Americans, even a lot of vegetarians, are getting too much of the omega-6 fats, which actually increase inflammation. But the omega-3 fats are actually anti-inflammatory. And as we get the omega-3 fats up, interestingly, even though they're a fat, triglyceride levels come down. And all of the healthy things start to occur. The blood vessels get more flexible. And those omega-3 fats are going to be in things like flaxseed. The type of fat that's in spinach, there's not much fat in spinach, but the type of fat in spinach is your omega-3 fats. So we don't necessarily recommend adding oils or adding fats to the diet so much, but getting these fats in the foods themselves, and particularly in depression and anxiety recovery, we're talking about the anti-inflammatory fats, because depression and anxiety is also an inflammatory disease of the brain. We'll see inflammatory markers up, and when they get on omega-3, those inflammatory markers go down, and when we lower their saturated fat and their omega-6 fat, the inflammation will also go down.
Terrific. Alicia, who's watching live, says, I have a slow healing foot wound and diabetes. Can I achieve good blood sugars and quicker wound healing with a plant-based diet?
Yes, absolutely you can. It's going to help your microcirculation. It's going to help your macrocirculation. And it will also help healing in a number of ways. And so this is one of the key things. In New Start, we'll have people that were actually thought to need an amputation, and their doctors had recommended an amputation. But by coming here and going plant-based, their circulation improves, their ability to heal improve, and they end up not needing the amputation. Now, that's not in all cases. If you have gangrene and you have no circulation at all and your macrocirculation is totally gone, it may be too late at that point. But for a typical person, we're going to be able to make a significant difference in their healing with a plant-based diet.
Terrific. People are asking, if they came to the program, is it possible for them to get off their antidepressant medications?
Yes, it is. In fact, in 20 weeks, 90% of our patients will be depression-free, anxiety-free, and medication-free. 10% of them will still need medicines depending on what is their background and their scarring. So it's not like you have to get off your medicines to come here. In fact, we actually don't take you off your medicines at first. We want to fix the primary defects, because if we take you off medicine and the primary defects aren't fixed, you're going to relapse and you're going to get worse. And so, but normally by the end of the program, the person is able to start weaning medicines off. Certainly by 2 weeks after the program, they're able to wean it off, and we give it a specialized weaning that's very safe. You won't relapse, and you'll actually feel better off the medicine once you don't need it than you ever felt on the medicine.
That's incredible. Have you ever had patients with trichotillomania and have had any success with them? Because I've interviewed like psychologists on this show, and they said that's a very difficult mental health disorder to overcome.
Trichotillomania is something that we love to treat. We actually, and sometimes it's young patients. I can tell you about our, probably the one that is most in my mind, because I also like helping children. We had a 12-year-old girl that came to our program recently with trichotillomania, and she had to wear a hat all the time because of all the hair that was gone, and her eyebrows were gone, and her eyelashes were gone, and there were some difficult aspects to her household. And so she came here for the comprehensive treatment along with her parents. When they're that young, they have to have someone that's going to give them the support system and the right diet and those type of things at home. But halfway through the program, Chef AJ, we have a burning where we actually have patients decide on their own what they're going to put in the fire and no longer get out that have been hurting them. And she had a good burning. She recognized some of the things that had hurt her and that she wanted to put in the fire and not get out. But at the very last day of the program, she asked for a private burning with her family and the staff. And at that burning, she burned her hat because she no longer was pulling at her hair at all. And the trichotillomania part was healed. Not that she didn't have a temptation with stress, but she now had all the tools available to no longer go that direction. And of course, you could have imagined the look on her parents' face, and even her brother who was there, who was very concerned about her because of what she was doing to herself. And so yes, trichotillomania is a disease that can get better. It's a form of obsessive compulsive disorder. But one of the therapies that's helpful is N-acetylcysteine. That's another amino acid, cysteine. And N-acetylcysteine is one of the things that's been shown to help brain chemistry issues that are related to trichotillomania.
Wow. Well, again, where have you been? I've had tricks since I'm 14. I have eyebrow tattoos because you didn't get in touch with me.
We'd love to have you come through.
I'm not kidding. So how does somebody get to you? Do they fly to Sacramento, or could you be, because people are saying exactly where your center is?
Yeah, so you fly into Sacramento, and of course you're enrolled in our program. So we'll pick you right up at the airport. It'll say our sign on the shuttle, and you'll get a nice shuttle. It's about 45 minutes with traffic to get here, and so it's not far. And then you'll spend the 10 days here, and then we'll shuttle you back to the airport when you're ready.
Sounds like people might never want to leave.
They do call it a piece of heaven on earth, that's for sure.
So people are saying, like, do you do any kind of online programs at all?
Yes, we do. Now, as a result of my third son, we recently have come out with depression and anxiety recovery online. So if you get in, if you actually Google Nedley Health Solutions and their homepage, it'll be down there on the list. You'll see a big banner for the online depression and anxiety recovery program. And that's a program you can do at your own pace, and it will teach you a lot of the principles of the residential program. You won't have the advantage of all the professional help and the blood work and all the brain chemistry analysis, but you'll have a lot of those principles that can help anybody. And then for some people, they might actually need the residential program and the professional help, and we're there for that too.
And do you accept any kind of insurance?
Yes. Now, there are some insurances, not many, because Obamacare did not do well with mental health care. There are some insurances that have actually compared us with other programs, and most of the other programs are $45,000 that are somewhat comparable, and they have found out that the expenses still continue post-program. Our program is $8,500, far less than that. So some insurances will actually pay for the flight for you to come here because they're going to save money on the back end. And then there's, in the typical Obamacare insurance, they don't pay a lot for it. And so a lot of it can be out of pocket for the typical person. but we also have a charitable organization that helps out those that can't afford the program, and you could ask about that when you enroll. And they won't be able to support all of the costs, but they might be able to subsidize some of the programs.
That's incredible. And Sharon wants to know, what are your thoughts about meditation in relation to anxiety or depression?
Okay, so there's two forms of meditation. Primarily, there's Eastern meditation, of which there's mindfulness characteristics, and then there's also called Western meditation. And Eastern meditation occurs without any ethical construct at all. In fact, it's primarily centered on what we call non-judgmentalism, which can actually help people feel better short term. But actually, we have found that the meditation with an ethical construct in regards to empathy and kindness, as well as ethical constructs, maybe even in regards to the treatment of animals or other things, when we meditate with an ethical construct, we get far better results. And so we will teach meditation here with an ethical construct and get the advantages of the Western meditation aspect.
Wow, it sounds great. Everything you're saying sounds great. I mean, seriously, it sounds fantastic. And again, where have you been? You were the hardest person to track down. As you know, I had to have Dr. Hans Deal call you because you were hard to find.
Well, I'm glad we connected.
Yeah. So one last question. Do you ever deal with addiction?
Yes. In fact, severe addictions, the benzo addictions, opioid addictions, as well as alcohol addiction. We had 2 in our last program that had severe alcohol addictions. And actually, we were working on the detox part of things the first few days of the program. But amazingly, here's what our addiction studies show. Most addictions like that are a 3 to 6 month, sometimes residential treatment program. We have found that particularly with the meditation piece, with the ethical construct, and all of the other things we're doing with brain chemistry, that most people will actually have a higher success rate in 10 days in a 3 or 6 month treatment center somewhere else. And of course, that saves a lot of money and it saves a lot of time. So yes, we love dealing with addictions because that's a major component of mental illness. Many people are self-medicating their mental illness with these addictions. And then of course, if we get on multiple addictions, we can actually cause ourselves to have mental illness if we didn't have it before.
Right. Sharon wants to know, do you personally do any online consultations?
We do some phone consultations in certain aspects. So you would get in touch with the Nedley clinic in regards to that. We have limited availability for that, but we do that.
Terrific. And have you written any books, Dr. Nedley?
Yes, we have written a book, one that I mentioned earlier, Depression: The Way Out, that has recipes in the back. We also have a book called The Lost Art of Thinking, which has to do with improving emotional intelligence. And then our largest book is typical disease of internal medicine, called Proof Positive. And Proof Positive deals with hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, all of the typical chronic diseases, and how we can improve that through nutrition and lifestyle.
I think I heard a dog, and aren't dogs great for mental health, pets in general?
Dogs are great for mental health. So Chef AJ, I was just going to show you, Clive just handed me this. This is our Depression: The Way Out. It's our latest edition that just came out with the new updated information. And this is our companion book called Brighten Up Breakfast. That is the mental illness part of things. So we have 2 of these books here today.
For some reason, I lost sound with you, Dr. Nedley, again, but that's okay because I think people can hear you and you hopefully can hear me. I'm going to put links to all of this in the show notes so people can find your books. And maybe your wife will come on and do a cooking demo with some of her beautiful recipes.
I'm sure she would love that. She's a lot of fun in front of the camera.
Oh boy, I can't hear you, but I can hear you now. I can hear you now. I said maybe your wife would come on the show another time and promote her cookbook and maybe even show a recipe or 2.
She's a lot of fun with cooking, and so she makes it highly enjoyable and highly entertaining.
Great. Well, you said she uses a lot of garlic, so that'll be interesting to see how she does that at breakfast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been, people love this so much. You are so passionate and so kind. And I just hope people will check out your work at newstart.com. And if they suffer from anxiety, depression, or any lifestyle disease, check out the Institute, because it really does sound like heaven on earth. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Nedley. And thanks everyone for watching. And please come back tomorrow when we will have a cooking demo from Jessica Porter. Thanks again, Dr. Nedley. Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you very much, Chef AJ.